So this is going to be so helpful for you if you've been questioning, like, yes, I know I need the help, but, and there's something in there around, will I definitely get results? When will I see results? How do you know that? Stuff around timing, and when it feels tricky, when it just feels heavy, there's a lot of thinking on it. So, this first bit I've got for you is looking at the results, and how do I know? How am I so certain that you're going to get a result? You might be thinking, how can you be so confident, Helen, that it's going to work out? Remember, I do this a lot. I coach hundreds and thousands of people through this process. So I know I can spot it. I can spot it when you can't, because your brain's sitting here with like the lack of belief. So I really want you to first and foremost borrow some of mine, but I know that'll only take you so far. So you might be thinking, yeah, but where does your confidence come from in this? Well, the honest answer is I have a process and I know where you're entering into it and how long that takes to get a result. So, for example, if you've already got an offer that you've sold before, you've got great results, you've done it time and time again, you've got maybe like a pile of people that seem to have sort of bottlenecked, and they're all like yes but, and they've got their own challenges, and you haven't quite worked out yet how to turn all that into definitive answers, yes or no. And so you've just kind of left them hanging. You've not really followed up with them properly. When you're in that position where you've sold it quite a number of times, dozens and dozens of times, you've got good results or products and people love them and they're telling you about them, you can see results really fast. And I'm talking about like within the same month, 6 to 8 weeks of working together. Some people have done this work and literally made money in the first week because they've seen what that bottleneck is. They've seen the whole pattern of that play out in one coaching session. And this is the thing, we think, God, it's taken us so long to figure this out and get to this stage. It's going to take us the same length of time to get any further traction. It's just what your brain can offer you at this stage. I want to take you to the place where your brain just doesn't have a clue how capable you really are. So like you're capable of creating fast results when you're in that space because you've already got the offer, you're already known for it. You have just got some unhelpful thoughts about your customers and their abilities to make decisions. When we think it's all sort of blocked in this bottleneck, it's going to take people a long time to decide because the reality is people are not deciding. So the opportunities are already there. It's just not being activated. You haven't quite learned how to move people through a call to a decision and stop being in this endless follow-up loop. It's likely because you've got some unhelpful thinking that's making you feel really uncomfortable about the conversation. So we're avoiding the conversation. So sometimes we'll think, I'll go and get more leads. That's the problem. I'll get more leads and bring that. All we do is bottleneck more to that. So if you don't learn how to translate that into paid invoices, you might get some sales just coming through because people are just really decided. But my hunch is that you've got a thought that there's not that many people out there that are very decided, and that you just have a limited access to your very best clients. So that's the stuff that we need to fix. And until you fix that, nothing else is going to change. You can tinker with systems, you can go over here and do all the shiny stuff, you can create new offers, you can drop prices, but none of that's going to get you the result of like double the revenue or taking you from like 5K months to 10K months or 10K months to 20K months or 20K months to 30 plus 40K months. That's not the pathway. The pathway is getting to see your unhelpful thinking and where you're spending your time and what actions you're avoiding and creating a process to get people to calls and convert them. So there's the opportunity there, it's just not been activated. So the work we do together, you're not having to create something from nothing. It's just uncorking what's already sat in front of you and you seeing why that is. So you can actually get really rapid movement in like weeks, literally weeks. Between if you started now, by the end of July, you'd be making more money if you're in that position. If you need to get known for the result that you deliver and you're not quite managing to structure the offer yet and you've sold it just maybe once, twice, That might take a little bit more time, but again, 6 to 8 weeks. And if you're at that stage where you're not known for the result yet, that is your work. That's what we would focus on. And we would focus on that relentlessly until usually around the 3 month mark, and people start referring you, people start booking in calls. That's the kind of pathway that it looks like, depending on where you're entering in at. So most people I work with, like I say, when they're in that first position where they've got this stack of stuff and it just seems to be bottlenecking and they can't get anything out of the follow-ups, or they're not even following up the first few weeks, because we go straight to the conversations that you've been avoiding and we fix the thing and thinking that's been stopping you from having those conversations. So when will I see results? That's one of the questions I get asked. Sooner than you think, because you've got thinking around how it's been up to this point and what you think is possible and what you think uncorks the problem. I know what actually solves for this. And I would say very rarely, I can't even think in the last 10 conversations I've had where a customer's come in and been bang on and we've agreed that is the work. They've always been somewhere else and I've had to repoint them over here. So it's just not obvious to you. Our brains just can't fathom this kind of stuff. The second thing is, again, there's something else that's dependent on the result, and that is so in your control more than anything else. And that's how decided you are it's going to work. So if you come in with like, well, it's worth a punt, I guess, maybe I could just see how we get on. Like, maybe it's possible. Possible sounds fun. Possible gets you excited a little bit, but possible also gives you an out when it gets a bit hard. I learned this myself recently and I really liked it, so I thought I'd share it with you. But what about inevitable? When you think the result is inevitable, I imagine that feels very different to possible. Inevitable is like an surety, like a knowing, like a backing yourself times 10. And we often think that we need different conditions to allow us to be in that state. Like when the diary's totally clear, I've got no distractions, the kids are back at school, I've got a pot of money, then it's inevitable. No, because you could still have all of that and still not get a result if you've got this. I just don't think it's possible thought. It's the kind of way I liken this is the certainty that you have when you book a summer holiday. You don't lie awake thinking, well, I wonder if I'm going to make it to summer. I wonder if like summer's ever going to, if it's going to come. You book a holiday, you book the flights, you get the factor 50 out or factor a million if you like my translucent other half. You buy it and you book it because you act from the assumption it's happening. You make plans for it. You could have that same thought. Of course, I'm planning for it. Of course, it's going to happen in your business, but we don't. And that's the fundamental thing. That's what we bolster. And that's why the coaching is weekly, because I can see when you drop out of that, when you just, oh, I just forgotten that it's possible. I do it myself. I'm like, well, if I want this kind of money and this kind of result, it's going to take a long time to do. I just forget how clients are created myself. I have to do this work myself every single day. So possible, yeah, gets you excited. Inevitable, ooh, that's a different one. So how could you make a decision if you knew it was inevitable? You would invest. I know you would. Most people invest from possible, kind of hoping this shit works out. Hope leaks into every action. The messages are a bit diluted, the offers are a bit apologetic, everything gets pushed back, it might not work. When you invest from inevitable, oh, that's completely different. Yeah, you take very empowered actions from that. And that such a positive impact on the speed of getting the result, but also the you normally get a bigger result as well. So one of my clients, Austin, did this work and he was just aiming for, I think he wanted like 20K months and we ended up getting 37K. Another one of my clients, Tanya and Annabelle, they were in financial services and they really wanted to get 20K consistent months and they ended on 22K months consistently. But their first kind of proper month after doing this work in a VIP day, we spent all day on this for like a day and a half. And their first month after that, they did a 40K month. They doubled their revenue. So like that's how when you get that in success is inevitable, of course it's going to work out. things exponentially go up. So, some questions to get you to reflect on is what feels possible right now? What would have to be true for it to feel inevitable? And what would you do differently if you were acting from that place? Because that is likely to be the thing that gets you the result. And if you're like, yeah, I would be taking these kind of actions, I'd be having these conversations, but I just don't know how, I've got thinking on it. Yeah, you haven't learned the process. You haven't chosen some supportive thinking. You haven't been coached yet. So you need the coaching now. The other thing is about the overwhelm and the timing. So, like, how much is actually involved? I can't give more to this. I feel overwhelmed. Now, a lot of the time we feel overwhelmed because, again, we haven't done the work yet. We don't know the simple path to making money. It could literally be make more offers, show up in actually less places, think about your clients a little bit more and put your brain in their brain and put the prices up. Could literally be that simple, but simple doesn't mean without effort, and your brain can do a whammy on that. Putting the prices up could be the simplest thing and the simple path for getting your result, but you've probably been delaying that for months, overthinking it. So that's what I mean around it feels overwhelming. And overwhelm isn't so much capacity issues. For me, it's more about like mental and emotional management. And there's two things that I see that boil down to this. The first is you're spending your time and energy on people who are not your best fit. And when you're talking to someone who's not quite right, you have to work so much harder. It feels like you have to convince them. You're in your head about what to say, how to warm them up, how long it's going to take. People need to watch me. They need to see me for a long time. I need to build know, like, and trust. That takes forever. You're convincing rather than connecting. Your best person already has the problem you solve for. They're actively trying to fix it. So when you show up and tell them that you can help them with that, they're not going to need convincing. They're going to be like, oh, thank God you've shown up. Oh, okay, you might get some pushback, or the occasional person might be put off with a bit of directness, but that's fine because the people who are not put off by that are your people. They're going to hang around, they're going to think it's amazing. The ones that think, okay, now finally, someone who just gets to the point. So we have a lot of thinking about things, which brings me to the second thing. It's not the task that exhausts you, it's the thinking about doing the task. So sending 10 intentional messages to people, being clear and direct about what you want, how you can help, could literally take 15 minutes. But most people spend hours, days pushing it around, second guessing it, putting it off. And I think it's always the avoidance of the emotions that sit underneath that, the doubt, the shame, the fear of disappointment, the fear of rejection. Avoiding those feelings takes more out of you than just feeling them and getting on with the task. Like, it's the resistance that drains us, not the work itself. So we get very clear on the two things that are going to move the needle, and you stop expelling energy everywhere else. And it will literally be, how do I get more people to a call, and how do I convert them so that I'm not in this endless follow-up in the most simplest, easiest way? And the amount of people you need might not even be the amount that you think you need. Because one of the skills that you might decide that we need to work on is, if I can convert more, that means I need less, which means to hold things more overwhelming. I don't need as much time, don't need as many clients. Everything just gets very simple. But you can't get access to that thinking when we're in that, I haven't got any money, I haven't got any time, this is really difficult. So, what I would say to that is to book a call with me, have a consultation call, and let's have a look at what this work looks like. We'll spend an hour, we'll have a look at where you're entering in at, where you'd like to be with this, what stands in the way, how you think you would do the work, and we'll have a look at what actually needs to happen. And like I say, that's exactly what the consultation call covers. The link to book that is in the comments. What do you want? What's the simple pathway to get it? Then there's time to walk through whatever still doesn't make sense about the process. Maybe, we haven't joined the dots up enough and you can't quite see how it would work. Whatever your brain's offering up to keep you safe, we can explore that. And you might even land on the fact that it's definitely not for me, and that's fine, but you'll know why. And it won't be because I don't have the time or the money. It'll be because you'll know exactly why you're not prioritizing the resources that make that result inevitable.